This is a heavy one. Why children forget CSA is from The Courage to Heal. Although there is a great deal we don't yet know about memories of trauma, there are some concepts we can clearly understand. Why, for instance, might the survivor of an earthquake, a shipwreck, a war, or a concentration camp retain a conscious awareness of these ordeals while a child of CSA might not? To begin with, earthquakes, wars, shipwrecks, and even concentration camps have names. When the room starts shaking, the walls buckle, and objects fall, we know what to call it. Even children too young to recognize the event as an earthquake have it named for them. An older person explains, "This is an earthquake. We run to the doorframe to be safe. There may be little earthquakes that may follow," and so on. But after being raped, assaulted, or otherwise violated sexually, it is unusual for this event to be explained to the child. You've just been essayed. The perpetrator had no right to do this to you. It's important that you get help. Until very recently, such acknowledgement and confirmation of abuse has been exceedingly rare. Most children who are sexually abused do not have a name for the experience. Publicly acknowledged events are more likely to be remembered than events that are never discussed or are denied or ignored. Yet, even sexual abuse, which has public confirmation, is more likely to be forgotten than an earthquake because of other factors such as shame. There is no shame or stigma associated with an earthquake. If a person remembers being in an earthquake, it will not affect her sense of self-worth or self-esteem. She will not be blamed for the earthquake or told that she asked for it. And earthquake victims are not threatened with violent consequences if they talk about what happened. Also, survivors of childhood sexual abuse were, by definition, children when the abuse took place, often without any trusted adults to turn to, even for sympathy. Except in families where siblings stuck together, these children frequently were isolated in their trauma. Unlike soldiers in a war who had a group to belong to and to bond with, and unlike concentration camp prisoners who at least had some awareness of who was on their side and who was the enemy. For many abused children, the person who was supposed to be on their side was the enemy. We know that even survivors of recognized events such as wars and disasters can have amnesia for particularly painful aspects of their experience. When we consider the plight of an isolated child, unable to name her suffering, even to herself, unable to speak of it or to comprehend it, with no means of escape except in her mind, we can see why the process of burying the abuse may have been necessary to survive. Dissociation. To comprehend how someone can not remember traumatic events, it is useful to understand the process of dissociation. In situations of overwhelming pain, terror, and violence, when our minds cannot bear to endure what we are forced to endure, we separate ourselves, or a part of ourselves, from the experience. We dissociate. Survivors of CSA frequently report that they watch themselves being raped. "I left my body and looked down at myself from the corner of the ceiling." Your consciousness split, separated from what was unbearable. Under these conditions, our brains do not function as they do under conventional circumstances. In fact, the entire psychology of the brain works differently. Our minds are this overstimulated, we can become psychologically incapable of absorbing and storing information in a normal way. Instead, we dissociate these experiences, split them off from our own conscious knowledge. Later fragments may return in the form of visual images, body memories, sensations, and intrusive feelings or thoughts. Survivors of CSA who separated from themselves at the time when they were being abused may have perceived and remembered their experience only in bits and pieces, in feelings, in bodily sensations, sounds, smells, visual images, not in a coherent chronological story that can be easily told. Paradoxically, although trauma may lead to amnesia or to disjointed remembering, it may also fix memories indelibly in our minds. We may be unable to know the whole story of what happened to us for the same reason that we may not be able to get away from fragments of what happened to us. In both situations, our minds have been unable to integrate the memory of our trauma into the whole of our lives. Even while we may not be able to understand or tell the story about our abuse, we may also be bombarded by feelings, body sensations, and images of terrifying scenes. Recalling the actual events, talking about them, feeling our feelings, and integrating these events into our life histories is part of the healing process that can enable survivors to move beyond past suffering and into the future.